3 insane true hidden camera horror stories that haunted me. For the night was dark, cloaked in an eerie silence that felt suffocating. Shadows danced along the walls of the old, abandoned house where the whispered rumors of hidden cameras and untold horrors lingered like a ghost. That place was a shrine to secrets and unseen eyes. If those walls could talk, they'd surely scream. Just imagine, innocent lives caught in a web of deception, trapped in a nightmare where every move was recorded for someone else's twisted pleasure. The very thought sent shivers down my spine. The first incident involved a local couple, brimming with love yet blinded by trust. They thought the rented apartment was safe. But lurking behind the pristine walls were tiny lenses, capturing their most intimate moments. Can you picture it? The couple relaxed on the couch, smiling, unaware of the hidden horror unfolding just beyond their sight. Every laugh echoed through a sinister feed, watched by unknown creeps, eyes filled with a mix of lust and malice. Their joy was poison, tainted by the betrayal of what should have been a sanctuary. Then there was the alley behind Gleason's diner, a hotspot for late-night fries and laughter. A young man named Jake had the perfect plan to ask his crush out on a date. Little did he know, he'd become an unwilling star in an underground series of shock videos. As he knelt on one knee, the darkness transformed into a twisted circus. Laughter erupted, but it wasn't from his crush. The camera zoomed out, revealing a gaggle of onlookers, smartphones trained like weapons, capturing his every moment of vulnerability. The excitement turned to dread as the playback looped, each replay amplifying the pain, layer upon layer of public humiliation. But then, in a shocking turn of events, something snapped inside Jake. Fueled by rage and betrayal, he searched for the puppeteers of the hidden cameras. Could he expose the reality behind those deceitful lenses? It felt like a dark game, the stakes rising with every clue he uncovered. Where was the sense of safety? The thrill of connection turned into a terrifying hunt for answers. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as the mystery deepens, the last chilling revelation awaits. In a chilling twist, Jake uncovered a network of hidden cameras installed in various places, all tied to a single mastermind who thrived on deception. The visuals were like a horror movie, faces blurred on flickering screens, lives stripped bare. As Jake pieced together the puzzle, he could feel every heartbeat, hear the sinister laughter behind each lens. The air grew heavier, tension rising like smoke from an extinguished flame. What he didn't know was that he was already being watched, and the watchers weren't happy. The dark figures holding the strings were closer than he could ever imagine. In that moment, a shadow flickered past him, sending chills racing down his spine. Who else had been drawn into this web? Would anyone ever escape? The questions clawed at him, and so the hunt began. The darkness in the alley seemed to swallow everything as Jake's heart raced. He turned sharply, scanning for the shadow that had whispered past him. The sickening tension clung to him like a thick fog, wrapping tight around his chest. Was it just my imagination? He muttered, his voice barely a whisper. Fear clawed at him, every sound amplified, the rustle of a plastic bag, the distant hum of a car engine, and his own labored breath. Determined, he pushed onward, gripping his phone tightly, the light of the screen barely cutting through the gloom. He knew he had to find the source of the cameras. Each step felt heavier as he recalled the faces blurred on the screens, people unknowingly caught in a voyeur's game. It wasn't just a sick thrill for whoever was behind this, it was a relentless invasion. Then it hit him. He remembered a name, a whisper he'd overheard while piecing together the puzzle. Carter. The thought sent a jolt through him. Carter was someone everyone in town knew. Smooth, charming, and always hanging around where the fun was. But he also had a reputation for crossing lines, taking risks. Jake edged toward Carter's last known hangout, a rundown bar where the neon lights flickered as if they were struggling to survive. The moment he stepped inside, the atmosphere thickened. Conversations faded as eyes turned toward him, some filled with curiosity, others with judgment. Jake could feel their scrutiny settle on his skin. At the bar, he spotted a figure hunched over a drink, shadows dancing along the stubbled jawline. It was him. Carter. With every ounce of courage he could muster, Jake approached. "I know what you've been doing," he spat, adrenaline surging through his veins. The taunting smile that crept across Carter's face confirmed the suspicion. "Oh, do tell," he purred, his voice dripping with amusement. "What exactly do you think I've been doing?" The tension snapped and a jolt of rage drove Jake to lean closer. "You think it's funny, huh? Invading people's lives. Turning them into entertainment for sickos? That's messed up." For a moment, silence filled the space between them, charged and electric. A few patrons looked away, pretending not to listen. But Jake could feel every ear trained on him, the weight of judgment pressing down hard. Carter chuckled softly, his eyes glinting like shards of glass. "You think you can just expose me? You're in over your head, pal. I'm just the messenger. The real game is much bigger than you than anyone could imagine." "Game? Is that what you call this?" Jake shot back, his anger boiling. "You're ruining lives." But Carter just leaned back casually, revealing his indifference. "Life's a show, my friend. And you're either playing the role or watching from the sidelines." Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the back of the bar. A figure stumbled forward, pale and trembling, eyes wild. "Help! They're coming. They know I know." Jake's blood ran cold. Before he could respond, the doors flew open, and a group of hooded figures stepped inside. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The laughter faded, and an air of terror gripped everyone. Jake's instincts screamed for him to run, but he was frozen. "Looks like the show's about to get a lot more interesting," Carter said, a wicked smile spreading across his face. Jake realized this wasn't just about hidden cameras anymore. The stakes were raising, and the danger was now very real. Who were these figures? Would he join the ranks of those who had already been collected by this dark web, or could he still escape? He took a step back, heart pounding, but there was nowhere to hide. What could he do now? Panic surged as the hooded figures moved closer. Jake's breath quickened as the hooded figures split apart, revealing unsettling, emotionless faces below their dark hoods. For a moment, he stared into those empty eyes, feeling as though the world around him had faded. The bar was a haze of whispers, the patrons shrinking away, their expressions a mix of fear and resignation. Carter leaned in, eyes alight with twisted glee. "You see, Jake, this is where the real fun begins. They're here to collect the unfortunate." "What? Collect?" The word felt foreign on his tongue, heavy with dread. Before Jake could process what that even meant, one of the hooded figures raised a gloved hand. "You! Come here," a voice like gravel commanded. It resonated through the bar, slicing through the tension like a knife. Jake instinctively stepped back, but the figure advanced. "I said come here." There was an urgency in the command that sent prickles of fear racing down his spine. Carter's laughter echoed in the space around them, a chilling sound. "Just give in, Jake. They don't like to be kept waiting. And believe me, you want to stay on their good side. Stay away from me." Jake shouted, his voice trembling. Adrenaline shot through him, igniting a panic he hadn't felt in years. Looking around, he noted a few patrons shift nervously, their faces turned down, avoiding the chaos unfolding. The figure moved closer, each step slow and deliberate. Jake glanced at Carter, noting how his smirk widened. "You think this is all just show, huh?" Jake snapped, irritation and desperation intertwining. "You have no idea what they're capable of." As if to prove a point, one of the hooded figures lunged forward, grabbing the trembling man who had stumbled into the bar earlier. "Please, I won't say anything. I swear." He gasped, eyes wide with fear. Jake's gut twisted as he recognized the dread on the man's face. Suddenly, he wondered what the silent audience had seen, what dark truths they knew. Could he pull back that veil, or was he already too deep? "Just tell them everything you know," Carter urged with twisted enthusiasm, basking in the chaos. "This is your last chance." The man stammered, I heard them say enough." The gravelly voice cut through the air. In one swift motion, the figure pulled the man close, violence flashing in the dim light. The tension was raw, shocking. Jake's instincts kicked in. He couldn't just stand by and watch. Summoning every ounce of courage, he made his move. "Leave him alone," he shouted. The hooded figure turned towards him, eyes narrowing from beneath the mask. "And what will you do if we don't?" Jake's heart raced as he prepared to fight against an unknown force, adrenaline surging. But before he could act, Carter stepped forward, offering a sickening grin. "This is the part where I suggest you run, Jake." Run? It felt impossible. Panic fluttered in his chest, as the gravity of the situation settled. Where would I even go? The bar door suddenly swung wide open, revealing a stormy night outside. A flash of lightning illuminated the street, creating a split second where Jake could see his options: escape into the night or confront the dark reality of what lay before him. As the hooded figure turned back toward their captive, ready to act, Jake made his decision. It was now or never. He bolted toward the door, taking one last glance back at Carter, the laughter echoing like a taunt. "You think you can escape the game?" Carter called after him, a chilling reminder of the lurking danger. The night swallowed him whole, the door swinging shut behind him as he raced into uncertainty, each heartbeat echoing in his ears. Was the real horror just beginning? What awaited him in the darkness? Would running reveal more than he bargained for? The rain came down in sheets, blurring everything in Jake's path as he raced into the night. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the disheveled street and casting eerie shadows that danced along the sidewalk. He didn't want to look back, but the haunting echo of Carter's laughter wormed its way into his mind, amplifying his flight response. His chest burned with exertion, panic coursed through him, mingling with the icy rain. Where was he running to? An alley, a house, a hiding spot anywhere away from the ominous hooded figures and the chaos he had just left behind. The streets felt foreign, each corner looking like it might harbor another threat. Suddenly, heavy footsteps splashed behind him. Jake's heart stopped. He glanced over his shoulder, catching a glimpse of one of the dark figures emerging from the bar's door, their presence highlighted by the flickering light of a nearby street lamp. Adrenaline spiked. They were coming for him. "Stop!" A voice boomed through the rain, rough and commanding. "You can't escape us." A surge of fear propelled him forward, his feet pounding against the slick pavement. The more he ran, the deeper the sense of dread sank into his bones. He needed a plan. Turn, hide, or keep running. Every instinct urged him to flee. Jake veered into a narrow alley, thankful for the brief concealment it offered. Panting, he pressed his back against the damp brick wall, heart racing. He could hear distant voices outside mingled with the rippling rain. Seconds felt like hours as he strained to listen. Where did he go? One of the hooded figures called out, their tone cold and unfazed. "He can't hide for long, the storm will not cover his scent." They had tracking skills. The thought twisted his gut into a knot. He was trapped. Jake's mind raced, searching for anything that could help him. Behind him, the alley opened into what looked like a forgotten courtyard, littered with debris and old crates. It didn't seem like much, but it was his only chance. That he slipped further into the shadows, crouching low. From his new vantage point, he could see a flicker of movement. The figures spread out, searching, sweeping the area with their gloved hands and harsh whispers. Panic bubbled within him. Just then, a spark of light deep in the courtyard caught his eye. A broken window, partially ajar. It looked like an old warehouse. Could it provide an escape route or, worse, another trap? He hesitated for just a moment, his instinct screaming to stay put until he knew for sure. "Jake!" The call rang out again, mingled with a sinister laugh. It was Carter. His voice was dripping with mockery. "You can't hide forever. The game has just begun." Jake's stomach flipped. The thought of being a pawn in a twisted game sent a shudder through him. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself. He had to get to that warehouse, had to find safety or answers, anything other than standing still. He took several urgent steps toward the broken window, alert for every sound around him. Every echo felt like 1,000 eyes watching, waiting for him to falter. Just as he reached for the ledge, the world around him erupted in chaos. A shocking crash reverberated through the air as the hooded figures spilled into the alley, their silhouettes stark against the stormy backdrop. Jake's breath caught. There was no retreat now, it was all or nothing. That he climbed through the window, bracing for impact as he tumbled into darkness once more. Cracked floorboards creaked under his weight, shadows enveloping him. It was quiet, but a tension hung heavy in the air, thick and electric. And then he heard it, a whisper, echoing from the depths of the building. Someone was inside. "Jake, help me!" He froze, dread pooling in his stomach. Who was that? What had he stumbled into? Shivering in the silence, he faced another decision. What lay ahead could lead him closer to answers or deeper into a nightmare from which he might never escape. Could he trust whoever was calling his name? Would entering the darkness bring salvation or his doom? The darkness wrapped around Jake like a heavy blanket as he took a tentative step further into the warehouse. The air was stale, thick with the scent of dust and decay. He strained his ears, trying to pinpoint the source of the whisper. "Help me!" echoed again, a flutter of desperation laced within it. "Is someone there?" Jake called out, his voice barely rising above the creaking wood. The echo swallowed his words, leaving him feeling more isolated, yet a strange force pulled him deeper into the shadows. His heart raced. Each step stirred the memories of Carter's mocking laughter and the relentless pursuit outside. He wanted to find safety but couldn't shake the dread that whatever awaited in the darkness might be just as dangerous. "Help me!" It came again, this time, it sounded closer, tinged with urgency. He gritted his teeth and moved forward, his hands outstretched to feel the jagged edges of the warehouse walls. The dim light cutting in through the broken window barely illuminated his path. As he turned a corner, the floorboards shifted ominously under his feet, and he nearly lost his balance. He stumbled into a narrow corridor, the walls lined with remnants of forgotten machinery and shadowy corners that seemed to shift with him. They felt alive, as if they might reach out and grab him if he lingered too long. "Who are you?" he shouted, hoping to draw out the voice. The response was only silence, thick and heavy. It wrapped around him, pressing in as he glanced anxiously over his shoulder. Then he saw her. A figure crouched at the far end of the corridor, partially illuminated by the faint light. Her hair was tangled and wild, clothes tattered. The frantic glint in her eyes pierced through the shadows. "Please, help me!" she cried, her voice filled with desperate need. Jake hesitated. He couldn't shake the fear that her cries were just a ruse, another part of the game being played by Carter. What if this trap led him straight into the clutches of those hooded figures? But the sincerity in her eyes pulled at him. "What happened?" he asked, taking a cautious step closer. "They captured me. They're coming. You have to help me out of here." Just then, out of the corner of his eye, he caught movement, shadows gathering in the darkness, approaching fast. His heart raced, pounding in his chest louder than the falling rain outside. His instincts screamed at him to run, but her gaze anchored him in place. "Jake!" The voice echoed again, deeper now, a chorus of hushed whispers melding with the storm outside. "Don't you see? They're closer than you think. You have to go." Panic surged through him. How could he decide? He could run, escape back to the night and the pouring rain. But what about her? Could he leave her behind? Suddenly, a flickering light from a broken bulb overhead blinked out, plunging the corridor into darkness. He could hear the heavy footsteps again, louder than before, echoing off the walls. Time was running out. "Trust me, please," she pleaded, her voice strong yet trembling. "We have to find a way out before they get here." In that moment, facing his own fears head-on, he made a choice. "All right, let us go." Together, they burst toward the back of the warehouse, desperately searching for an exit. Heart racing, adrenaline crashing, they raced through the shadows, but the sound of footsteps grew louder, and Jake's gut twisted with fear. They skidded to a stop at the far end of the building, where a rickety door quivered on its hinges. "Try it," the girl shouted, urgency ringing in her voice. His hands trembled as he gripped the door handle, turning it with all his strength. As the door burst open, a blinding flash of light overwhelmed him for a split second. In the next moment, chaos erupted. A hand snagged Jake's collar, yanking him back into the abyss as he heard the scream of the girl fade into the blare of deafening sirens echoing outside. Shadows closed in, swallowing everything in darkness. What sacrifice had he just made? Was he too late to save her, or had he just sealed both of their fates, as the relentless darkness engulfed him? A single thought gripped him tight: what awaited him on the other side of that door might be the fight for his life or the end of it all. Would he emerge as a survivor, or would he too become a prisoner of the dark? Jake gasped for air as the cold grip of darkness tightened around him. His instincts kicked in, pounding his heart against his ribs as he willed his eyes to adjust. He blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of the chaos that swirled around him. The panic of losing the girl gnawed at him even more than the looming fear of the unknown. That he stumbled back a few steps and nearly lost his footing as he hit a wall, the rough texture cutting into his palm. The sound of sirens continued to wail outside, sporadic bursts of light flashing through the cracks, illuminating fleeting glimpses of the dilapidated warehouse. But inside, all was shadow and echo. Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder this time, swirling like a cyclone in his ears. "Help him, help us!" The disembodied voices seemed to rise from the floor, gathering around him as if the very walls were alive, beckoning him to stay. Each syllable wrapped him in a web of confusion and fear. "Stop!" he shouted, desperate for silence. But they only crescendoed, drowning out his own frantic thoughts. "I need to find her," he shouted again, louder this time. Just ahead, through a sliver of feeble light, Jake caught another glimpse of movement. He forced himself forward, pushing against the knot of dread building in his chest. "Where are you?" His voice cracked, desperation seeping into his words. Then he tripped over something heavy, sprawling to the ground. His palms scraped against the icy concrete. There, partially concealed by the shadows, lay a discarded piece of machinery, a rusted pipe wrench, pocked and grimy. It struck him, a realization igniting a flicker of hope. This tool could protect him or break his fall should he face any more enemies. He fumbled around in the dark, gripping it tightly, the cold metal grounding him once again. "I want to let you take me," Jake yelled defiantly, his adrenaline soaring as he pushed himself back to his feet. "Jake!" The familiar voice broke through the din, wrapping him in both warmth and horror. The girl, could it be? "Jake, help me!" she pleaded again, her voice strained and distant. Each word sliced into him, feeling like a lifeline thrown into the abyss or a siren luring him deeper towards certain doom. Driven by a reckless need to find her, he dashed towards the voice, his grip tightening on the wrench. "Where are you?" he pressed, panic threading through his veins as he navigated the twisting shadows. "Over here," she cried, urgency slicing through her tone, but then silence. A cold wave washed over him, the emptiness amplifying his dread. Had he lost her again? The footsteps returned, reverberating through the corridor as if the very ground were alive with menace. Shadows danced, morphing into figures that loomed just out of view. He felt the cool rush of breath over his shoulder and swung the wrench wildly, his heart hammering like a drum. But the space was empty, painted in lingering shadows. "Jake!" The girl's voice broke the silence again, but now it was streaked with an edge of fear that sent ice through his veins. "Hurry! They're coming for you." Each word was a jolt, pushing him forward. He rounded a corner, each step echoing in the heavy atmosphere. Then suddenly, he saw her crouched in the corner, eyes wide with a mix of hope and fear. But before he could call out, the darkness deepened, and figures emerged from the abyss, dressed in hoods and cloaks, eyes glowing like embers. The chill in the air thickened, fueling his fears as they advanced. "Jake!" The girl screamed, reaching for him, but the figures closed in, their intention sinister and clear. Jake had a choice to make: stand and fight, or run and abandon the only hope he had left. That as he grasped the wrench tighter, he realized the price of his decision weighed heavier than ever. Did he dare face this unseen terror for another chance? The shadowed figures encroached, and his mind raced with possibilities, every ounce of courage flooding his body. The door behind him creaked, an escape route barely beckoning. But was it a way out or the final trap? With a quick, fevered breath, he plunged forward, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. But as he surged toward her, the earth beneath him trembled, and all at once, the warehouse split apart. Not just the structure, but reality itself. Was this the end, or a beginning more horrific than he could imagine? Jake barreled forward, heart racing, caught between instinct and desperation. The shadows danced, twisting as if alive, swallowing light, devouring hope. His breath came hard, each gasp laced with the weight of impending doom. But ahead, the girl still crouched, her eyes shimmering like stars trapped in a night sky, pleading and full of terror. The ground lurched violently beneath him, sending shockwaves of fear coursing through his veins. He stumbled, legs buckling, but he caught himself just before crashing again. Around him, the warehouse seemed to moan, rusted metal and cracked concrete vibrating with an ominous hum. "Stay back!" Jake shouted, wrench poised in his trembling hand. The robed figures advanced slowly, their movements deliberate, ghostly tendrils stretching toward him, fingers curling like claws. Their hoods cast shadows over their faces, but their glowing eyes pierced the darkness, cold and unfeeling. Just then, the girl let out a terrified scream, the sound echoing in the vast emptiness. "Jake! Don't let them take me!" Her voice sliced through the heavy atmosphere, staunching Jake's imminent panic. It anchored him, filling him with a fierce drive. He couldn't leave her behind. He wouldn't. That with a grim resolve, Jake lunged forward again, only to be met with an astonishing spectacle. The ground before him shimmered, a rift opening like a jagged maw. An inexplicable force pulled at him, dragging Jake towards the darkness that loomed before him. He fought with every ounce of strength, gripping the wrench tightly, resisting. "Jake!" Panic clouded her eyes as she stretched her hand out. "Please! It's a trap!" But he couldn't back down now. "I'm coming!" he roared, determination igniting a fire in his chest. Just then, one of the cloaked figures lunged at him, a shadowy foot catching him by surprise. His footing faltered. In a desperate attempt to keep his balance, Jake swung the wrench wildly, the iron smashing into solid darkness. An echo reverberated like thunder. The figure recoiled, momentarily stunned. "That's it, Jake. Keep fighting," the girl urged, her eyes aflame with resolve. He pressed forward, springing into action as adrenaline coursed through him. The figures writhed, their glowing eyes narrowing, as if their malevolence intensified. Each swing of the wrench became not just a strike against the shadow, but a declaration of his defiance. He could feel the fear loosening its grip, replaced by raw, burning courage. But as he advanced, he stumbled upon something unexpected: a collection of items scattered across the floor, glinting like forgotten treasure. Framed photographs, broken clocks, misconstrued memories. Their presence sent a chill racing down his spine. Each picture featured faces twisted in fear, eyes wide with desperation. Were these once people? Then the whispers returned, louder than ever. "Release us, set us free," they shrieked, merging into a crescendo that swirled around him like a cyclone. Jake clutched his ears, fighting to block out the sound. But the voices clawed at his sanity, a gnawing dread burrowing deep into his mind that he needed clarity not just for himself, but for the girl too. He glanced back at her, losing sight of her amidst the chaos, shadows writhing and flickering. "Where are you?" he yelled, panic creeping back in. Had he already failed her? Before he could react, one of the figures surged forward, faster than lightning. In one swift motion, it grasped the wrench from his hands, ripping it free. The weightlessness made him feel exposed, vulnerable. Jake's blood ran cold as he faced the figure without his only defense. But just when the figure raised the wrench to strike, the girl's voice rallied in his heart. "You can't let them win, Jake." Fueled by pure instinct, he charged recklessly at the figure, body slamming into it. Cold, hard darkness felt like ice, but he pushed through. Tumbling together, they crashed to the floor. The warehouse trembled again, making Jake's head spin, but he could see the girl struggling against her captors, her spirit unyielding. With fierceness, he lunged for the wrench, scrambling to gain back what was his. But as he grasped the metal, a blinding light burst forth, flooding the warehouse with blistering clarity. In that split second, he felt a surge of power unlike anything he'd ever known. But what would it lead to? Would it save them both or seal their fate forever? A silence fell, thick and smothering. Reality folded back into itself, shadows retreating as blinding light pulsed around them. Jake knew he had to act fast, but every choice now felt like it could bring redemption or doom. What would be the price of freedom? And what awaited him when the dust settled? The light enveloped them both, a fierce brightness battling against the shadows that had come to claim the girl. For a split second, everything froze: Jake, the girl, the figures, the whispers. It was as if time itself had shuddered and bent, caught in the clash between dark and light. Jake's heart raced, the pulse pounding in his head was deafening. He felt warmth coursing through him, a contrast to the icy grip of fear that had wrapped around his chest moments before. But as swiftly as it came, the light began to dim, and the oppressive shadows crept back in, hungrily reclaiming their territory. "Jake!" Panic surged through the girl's voice, breaking the brief tranquility. Her eyes reflected terror as she struggled against an unseen force, her frail body twisting in a desperate bid for freedom. "They're coming back." He realized then that the wrench had transformed in his grip. It hummed now with energy, vibrating as if alive, an extension of his own defiance. He took a deep breath, grounding himself. "Not this time," he whispered fiercely to himself. With renewed vigor, he sprang forward, the wrench held high. Before he could reach her, the shadowed figures closed in again, their movements becoming frantic and erratic as they sensed a shift in power. They were no longer just lurking predators, they were wounded beasts, thrashing to regain control. Jake swung the wrench, each impact sending shockwaves of light splintering through the air, fracturing the shadows. The figures hissed, their glowing eyes flashing with rage, but he pressed on, fueled by the force of connection between him and the girl. She was counting on him, and he wouldn't let her down. "Keep going, Jake. You're stronger than them." Her voice cut through the chaos, a lifeline amid the tempest. She was right, he could feel it. The power thrumming in his veins surged until every swing felt like a part of a greater truth, but just as he stumbled closer to her, one of the figures lunged forward, its arm extending like a whip to wrap around his leg, pulling him down. The wrench slipped from his grasp, clattering to the ground. Darkness pinched at the edges of his vision, threatening to drag him under. "No!" he yelled, panic igniting as he kicked and twisted, clawing at the ground like a wild animal. Desperation mixed with grit propelled him, and the darkness that held him looked almost fluid, as if it could be defeated. He drew on the energy within him, imagining it as a heated flame burning away the tangles of shadow. The grip on his leg loosened, and he erupted forward once more, scrambling to grasp the wrench. A feral scream erupted from the cloaked figures, and an eerie wind swept through the warehouse, rattling the rusted beams and sending debris skittering across the floor. The girl was still trapped. He could feel the urgency pulse in his veins like a metronome. Time was running out. "Shake it off, Jake. You have to fight." She called out, her fear-infused energy swirling around him, mingling with the glow emanating from the wrench. With one last determined burst, he kicked off the remnants of the shadows gripping him and lunged for the girl, wrench in hand. Suddenly, lightning cracked like a whip above them, and the entire space distorted, shimmering like a mirage caught in a sudden gust of wind. In that moment, time seemed to stutter, exposing a glimpse of an even darker reality enveloping the warehouse, a twisted dimension where the shadows feasted on despair. "What is happening?" Jake screamed, gritting his teeth against the wave of cold creeping into his bones. "Jake, look out!" The girl's voice pierced through his panic, snapping him back to the here and now. He turned just in time to see a cloaked figure hurtling towards him, its jagged mouth elongated into a horrific grin, teeth glinting, filled with malevolent hunger. In that split second, Jake's resolve crystallized. He raised the wrench, ready to make his stand. Would he break the cycle? Or was he merely adding more fuel to the darkness that sought to consume them both? The question echoed in his mind, just as the figure lunged. Fear gripped him as he swung. What would that choice lead to? Would it be freedom or annihilation? The next moment felt infinite. Jake's swing connected with a sickening thud, the wrench colliding against the figure's distorted face. A burst of light exploded from the impact, illuminating the warehouse in blinding brilliance. For a heartbeat, the sensation was heavenly warmth flooded through him, pushing back the shadows. But as quickly as it came, the glow faltered, leaving the room shrouded in flickering darkness once more. The figure stumbled back, screeching, an unholy sound that scraped against the walls like nails on a chalkboard. The air felt charged, thick with anticipation and dread. Jake took a step forward, heart pounding and breath coming in sharp gasps. He could feel the girl's presence behind him, the weight of her hope blending with his fear. "They're weak," she cried out, her voice trembling yet fierce. "You're breaking them." He glanced back at her, seeing the flicker of defiance in her eyes, a spark igniting amidst the terror. With renewed determination, he charged at the next figure, the wrench held high like a beacon of rebellion. The second figure lunged, shadows swirling around it like a tormenting tempest. Jake sidestepped just in time, barely evading its grasp. The shadows seemed to twist in mockery, laughing in a low, guttural tone. "Why do they make those horrible sounds?" Jake muttered under his breath. Each hiss made his skin crawl, but that gnawing fear was becoming fuel. He could feel the energy from the wrench resonating through his fingers, filling him with a fierce sense of purpose. Only a few feet away, something caught his attention, a faint shimmering at the edge of the warehouse. It looked almost like a door, glimmering with potential. Could it lead them to safety? Or was it simply another trap set by the shadows? The next figure lunged at him again, its claw-like hands outstretched, and Jake barely slipped away, rolling to the ground. "Not again!" he shouted as he regained his footing, adrenaline surging. He swung wildly, aiming for the flickering form, but the figure danced away, its body like smoke slipping through his grasp. Frustration mixed with his desperation, pulling at his insides. He couldn't let them win. Not now. Not when the girl was counting on him. "Jake! Behind you!" she screamed, her voice a mix of terror and urgency. That he spun around just in time to see a third figure poised, ready to pounce. Without thinking, he raised the wrench and brought it down with all the strength he could muster. It connected, sending a shockwave that rippled through the air, scattering the shadows temporarily, but victory was fleeting. The figure exploded into a cloud of black smoke, reforming just a few feet away, eyes blazing with anger. Jake felt the darkness push against him, pricking at his skin like icy needles. He had to act, and fast. "Come on!" he shouted, glancing back at the girl. "We need to reach that light." With every ounce of courage, they raced toward the shimmering doorway at the edge of the warehouse. Shadows crawled at their heels like a pack of wild dogs, desperate to claim their prey. The girl stumbled, but Jake grabbed her arm, pulling her upright. They couldn't stop. Not now that as they neared the light, Jake realized the figures were not just following, they were converging, forcing the space between them to whip and twist like a living entity. Panic surged again, but he shook it off. They couldn't be caught. Just keep going, he urged, breathless. Lightning cracked overhead again, illuminating the doorway momentarily. What lay beyond was obscured by the shadows, yet the glow was undeniable. Would they find salvation or merely plunge into another nightmare? The question raced through Jake's mind as they sprinted toward the light. Just as they reached it, shadows clawed at their backs, pulling them down. "Jake!" she screamed, the sound of terror piercing through the chaos. He reached for the light, but would it take them to freedom or entrap them forever? Before he could find the answer, the world erupted into chaos once more. The explosion of chaos healed into silence, a heavy void where the shadows had once writhed. Jake's breath hitched, and for the briefest moment, he felt suspended in a vast nothingness. The wrench slipped from his fingers, forgotten, as light spilled around him, warm, inviting, and full of promise. The girl was beside him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and disbelief. Did we make it?" she breathed, all weaving through her words. They stood together at the threshold between light and dark, the remnants of their torment fading into the background. "It's going to be okay," Jake replied, feeling the tension in his chest ease. But even as he said it, the shadows loomed at the edges, faint whispers howling in frustration at being thwarted. Deep down, he knew this wasn't quite over. As the light brightened, revealing the landscape before them, they took their first tentative steps into a vast, sunlit meadow. Birds soared overhead, the sky painted in vibrant azure, as if they'd been transported to an idyllic world. Grass swayed gently in the warm breeze, the scent of wildflowers filling the air paradise. For a brief moment, they let the tranquility wash over them, hoping to forget the horrors from which they'd just escaped, but reality crashed back hard. The girl turned toward Jake, a knot tightening in her throat. "What about everyone else?" Her voice cracked, stark against the peace surrounding them. His heart dropped. "You're right. We can't leave them." The weight of their shared experience pressed down on him like a lead blanket. Each face he'd encountered in the dark flashed before his eyes, the unknown victims of Carter's twisted game. Without hesitation, they made their decision. They could not walk away from those still trapped in the dark. Together, feet pounding with purpose, they turned back toward the encroaching shadows, ready to face whatever came next. As they retraced their steps, gravity shifted. The meadow blurred, merging with flashes of the warehouse. Glimpses of the figures, their shadowy forms contorting in frustration, gripped Jake's heart with fear. But he was no longer the same. Anger ignited in his gut, and determination forged a fire in his chest. "Let us find them," he exclaimed, hands clenched into fists. The shadows curled as if responding to his resolve, hissing in contempt. "How?" She looked at him, anxiety lining her features. "We need a plan, Jake." He nodded, the shadows still clawing at the edges of their vision. "There are echoes in the walls of that place, we can use it to find where they're keeping people." Together, they approached the dark rift and stepped through, reaffirming their bond. The air crackled as they re-entered the warehouse. The shadows twisted and churned, swirling like a storm ready to erupt. "Stick together," he directed, adrenaline gripping him. They navigated through the chaos, pushing past the phantoms that writhed in despair. Each encounter fueled Jake's strength, his own fear channeling into a force that could not be contained. They pressed on until a series of flickering lights caught their attention, a crack beneath a door that had been all but consumed by darkness. "There!" Jake pointed, racing toward it with newfound purpose. Taking a breath, they burst through and found themselves in a dimly lit room filled with shadowy figures, trapped like marionettes cut from their strings, many of whom bore trauma and fear. Jake felt his resolve harden, knowing that together, they could overcome it. The wrench materialized back in his grasp, the weight of it grounding him. "Everyone, listen," he called, voice cutting through the murmur. "We're here to help. We're going to get you out. With that rallying cry, Jake swung the wrench toward the shadows. Their collective scream echoed back, the energy swirling around them, creating a violent cyclone of sound and fury. But united, the group bolstered their spirits, each step turning their fear into a rallying force. Together! Jake shouted, lifting the wrench high. They charged forth, pushing back the darkness. With each strike, a flicker of light exploded, illuminating their path. As they moved like a tide of defiance, they burst through the shadows that had tormented them. The oppressive atmosphere thickened, then began to splinter, fracturing into shards of fading darkness. One by one, the trapped lost their chains of despair, emerging back into the light, their faces bright with gratitude and strength shared. The warehouse trembled, shadows writhing in betrayal, but their fury only strengthened the light. As they all stood united, a force seemed to pass through them, a promise that they would not be chained again. They stepped into the sun, leaving the shadows behind. Every heartbeat echoed with victory. With weary but hopeful hearts, Jake and the girl turned to all those they saved. "We're free," he said, aware that while scars would linger, they had emerged from the horrors together. "No more shadows, no more games at our expense." As his words hung in the air, a ripple of resolve passed among them, an unspoken agreement to reclaim their lives, broken by hidden cameras and deceit. They stood together, resolute and whole, stepping into a new world filled with light, laughter, and life. With that shared spirit and freedom in their hearts, they walked forward ready to embrace whatever came next, a community forged in a battle against darkness. Now, as their journey continues, there is something you need to do. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help more people discover these wild tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We love to hear from you. And don't forget to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.